things I just want to encourage all you guys on. This one is going to be, if you're joining us on the last one, it was just a ton of information. It was super fascinating, interesting. This one is going to be much more experiential, I think. So he's just going to really get down and dirty into the practices of this is what he teaches and what he does and what he prescribes to these elite performers that he coaches. So really want to encourage you guys to take the time and space to practice along and participate and do this stuff. It's really profound when you do this work, what it does to your body and physiology and how that affects your thinking and your mind and everything in between. So this is a great opportunity and a chance to do that. So I just want to encourage you guys to take that time. I also mentioned, I put it in the comments, but I just mentioned it here, just as a special thank you for joining us. I created a special coupon. If you guys are interested in trying any of our products, use code word breath. You'll get an additional 15% off, and that can stack with any promotions we have now. And we have some really good deals going on right now. Very excited to introduce Mark to you for those that are not aware of him. And I know a lot of you do follow him, which is why you're here, which is awesome. So Mark is one of those truly remarkable human beings, and I'm just very excited to bring him to our community and very excited to lead this session. Just a quick intro of Mark and his background. He was in the armed forces for 20 years, 9 in active duty with the Navy SEALs, graduating top of his class, known as the Honor Man, and having his entire boat, the original boat crew, graduate with him, which is a phenomenal feat that just doesn't happen, which is very cool. He shared something out the other day on his Instagram that summed up what he is all about so well, and I want to share that with you guys. He just said, "My purpose is to master myself so I can serve humanity as a warrior, leader, and teacher." So if you guys aren't following Mark, check him out on Instagram at Real Mark Divine, if you aren't already. He's a great follow. Mark retired from the military, created several different companies and programs from SealFit, Unbeatable Mind, Kuroko Yoga, all his coaching programs, as well as writing and publishing several best-selling books. He's got a podcast. He's got so much stuff going on. What really makes Mark's program so effective and what we really love about him is his focus on the whole person. So training the physical, the mental, the emotional, intuitive, and spiritual, all those things in alignment, which is very much close to how we design our products based on the whole complex system, understanding the entire human approach. So I'm super excited to have Mark with us today, to have him lead this breathwork session. He's going to introduce you to the unique breathing practice that he teaches to special operators and other elite performers that allows them to dominate over stress, maintain control while under extreme pressure. So with that, I'm going to give it over to Mark so he can kick this off.
Okay. Hey, thanks everyone for showing up. This is really cool because this is important work. And Ben, thanks for what you're doing and having me on this this show with the other esteemed guest, must admit. I'm a big fan of Neurohacker, by the way. I take my Qualia and my Qualia Life, I think it's not. I was basically saying I love Neurohacker. I'm an investor in Neurohacker, and I take Qualia Life and Mind, 5 times a week. I attribute it to all my success.
Thank you.
As well as breathwork. So some of you might know a little bit about me, but I'll just assume that you don't, and it doesn't matter anyways, because it's sort of an interesting story. A little bit about my background beyond what Ben said, to really just to validate that I know a little bit about breathwork, and that's frankly all you can know because it's a vast subject, and anyone who claims to be an expert, is probably puffing their own panties because breathwork has been around for thousands of years, and it's really an extraordinary, tools, opportunity, thing. I'm not sure what to call it, to work with, from everything from just balancing your body, mind, and de-stressing and coming up with a completely day in and day out way to maintain total control over stress. And certainly in this bizarrely strange world that we live in with COVID and economic shutdown and political mayhem, stress is really taken over. And obviously people are just out of control right now. I see that a lot with our clients and all around me. So breathwork, as you know, this is a no-brainer, can help us de-stress, but when used as a daily practice with the right process, can keep us in optimal balance, physically, mentally, emotionally. It takes a little bit of time to get there, but the the process, the practice is the process, and it's truly extraordinary when you get there. Additionally, breath work can help us manage our arousal states, so that we think of that as like peak performance, getting ready for a performance event. Breath work will get us ready for that. It'll help us maintain a peak performance state during a performance. It'll help us activate flow on demand. And so there's amazing benefits. And this is really like the realm of Wim Hof and some, more alternative breath practices that are for performance. Breath can also help us with energy management and mood management. So it has a big effect on our energy states and our moods. And so you can have different practices, as I'm sure you're learning through this series that Ben organized, that can affect our mood and our energy. And also it can be used for a long-term therapeutic process in conjunction with other therapies to help overcome anxiety and depression. So there's a lot of health benefits for mental and emotional health. And also development of mental and emotional power, right? So there's two sides to that coin. Some of the more profound benefits come obviously from the spiritual aspects of the breath. And interestingly enough, that's where I got my start. So when I graduated from college, I went to Colgate University, upstate New York, and I followed a bunch of my friends down to New York City, and I was kind of a clueless college graduate. And probably the most momentous thing that I did in college was my endurance athletics. I was a competitive swimmer and a rower, and I just loved working out, as many of you do. And so then I went down to New York, and I found myself at NYU Business School, and I was working for Coopers & Lybrand, becoming a CPA, which I had little interest in, but it sounded like a good deal, right, to become a CPA and an MBA and then march on up the corporate ladder. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this story, but it's interesting, just like I said, as background. Probably the most notable thing that happened in the 4 years that I was in New York getting my MBA and CPA and working for Coopers & Lybrand, and then following that Arthur Andersen, was that I stumbled into martial arts studio, and I began a practice of Zen meditation, because the martial arts master was also a Zen master. And in fact, that was his true passion. He wanted to bring character development through the practices of Zen. And the way he taught Zen was start with breath awareness, breath practice. And so there were hundreds of people in his studio, and about 10 of us would attend the Zen training sessions. And I was one of them. And I did it for 4 years while I was there, every Thursday night. And I developed a daily practice. So I began to practice every morning for a minimum of 20 minutes. Now, the short version of the story is the transformation that led me when I was in my early 20s, and all the neuroplastic and effect that it had on my brain, and open up my pretty corrupted emotional life from an abusive childhood, and just really just hammered a hole right in the story of who I was and what I was meant to do in my life. And so I attribute the breath work combined with the Zen, the meditative process, with literally changing the trajectory of my life and aligning me with ultimately was my purpose. And that led me into the Navy SEALs. So in November of 1989, I packed my bags. I literally got my MBA certificate, or MBA, my CPA certificate. I got my first degree black belt. And I put those all on the shelf and got on a train to go to Newport, Rhode Island, to Officer Candidate School. And then I went to SEAL training. Now, when I got to SEAL training, like Ben said, in class 170, there were 185 students. I graduated number one in that class, one of 19 total students who graduated. And also, like Ben said, my boat crew of 6 others were with me on that graduating day. So we did something different, and 100% attribute it to the Zen and the breath practices. Because when I showed up at Bud's, I had some skills that the other students didn't have. And I didn't even know I had those skills, because they just kind of crept up on me. And they're the skills that I'm going to teach today. I had developed, when I sat on that bench, a process that I've continued to refine that I call the Box Breathing Continuum. And so the experience that I had through the 4 years and then continuing through my Navy SEAL days was that breath work can be a complete practice for physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual development. I don't think I really understood the profundity of it at the time, but since I made it my life work to really teach others this, and I started teaching SEAL trainees this when I launched SEAL Fit back in 2005, it's really started to become clear about what's going on. And now research is starting to catch up. So let me just explain what would happen or how this continuum works. And then we're going to go into some nuances around it. First, I had a big difficulty, just like a lot of people do, when they start meditation, with just stopping the incessant thinking that was going on in my mind. So the process that Nakamura had us go through was like Zen Boot Camp, right? And many of you are probably familiar with Zen. It's basically an austere Japanese version of Buddhism that is kind of like the warrior or militant Buddhism, right? It says, we're going to strip all the fu out of the kung fu, and we're just going to go right to concentration and focusing on a single point on the floor. And you're going to do this, and you're going to get hit on the back with a stick, if for instantaneous enlightenment along the way. And it may or may not help. And then we're going to have you, study these koans. And it's just really interesting, austere, and it doesn't work for everybody. And it didn't actually work for me, which is kind of interesting. So I would sit on the bench, and the process he had us do is he would say, okay, here's your deal. You inhale, and then you exhale. And that's all you do, through the nose. Inhale, exhale. Now, what you're going to do then is count. So one inhale and one exhale cycle is one count. And then you'll do another one, right? So you're doing inhale, exhale 1, inhale, exhale 2, and your goal is to get to 10. Now, the catch is when you start to notice that your monkey mind, your active mind, has started thinking again, then you got to go back to 0. It's like a penalty. And so, of course, when I sat down and did this for the first few times, I got to 10 every time. And I was completely fooling myself because I was thinking the whole time, right? I'm thinking inhale, exhale 1, and I'm thinking about something else, and I inhale, exhale 2, and I get to 10. I'm like, what's the big deal? And so you get into this a little bit further, you recognize, wait a minute, you're actually, that's all thinking, right? So your point is to not think. And so I said, well, that's really hard for me to do. So I started to, and because I was a competitive athlete and in particular a swimmer, in swimming, I had developed the capacity to hold my breath for long periods of time, which of course helped me out when I went through SEAL training. And so I started to hold my breath at the top of the inhale and at the bottom of the inhale. So at the inhale breath hold, we call that a retention, I was able to concentrate more. And then on the exhale breath hold, we'll call that a suspension, I was able to concentrate even more. They had different qualities to them, but I was able to concentrate. I mean, my brain would stop its activity. And what I noticed was that on the action of inhaling or exhaling, my brain would move, my mind would move, but on the retentions, my mind would be still. That was kind of a profound discovery. And that's my first inkling that breath is more than oxygen. Breath is life force, and it's consciousness itself. So you're inhaling thoughts and emotions, and you're exhaling thoughts and emotions. Now, those thoughts and emotions are actually, of course, infused by literally the color of your brain, your mind. I don't mean like actual color. I mean like your character. But it's also spontaneous, and it's also maybe because of the vast intricacy and extraordinary complexity of this thing we call life. Maybe it's all spontaneous knowledge, right? That's just flowing in and out of you. And so it's our job to be able to channel that, right? And to somehow, in some ways, control it, and then in other ways, surrender to it, which are different skills. So I started to experiment with this and get different experiences. So one experience I had is by controlling the breath and doing the count, that I was able to get further and further up that ladder toward 10 with a legitimate cessation of thoughts, except for that thought of inhale, hold, exhale, hold. And I recognized that this was actually a concentration practice. So it wasn't like I wasn't thinking. I was just collapsing my thought or focusing my thought to that one thing. I also recognized that if I added some imagery to that I could hold it through the count of 10. But I also knew that this was actually two things I was doing. I was thinking about the pattern of the breathing, and I was actually creating an image of a box being drawn in my mind while I was breathing in this pattern. But I was able to hold my attention all the way to 10 without any thought. And it took me 9 months or a year practically of daily practice to be able to do that. So this is not easy work. Like, breath work for the purpose of developing your mind and emotions, it takes some patience. Let's just say that. So I also recognize that all the stress that had been built up or was starting to accrue from being in a new career, being in Manhattan, being rushing around, juggling, full-time work and part-time school, and then the summertime's full-time school and part-time work, and rushing around to get my workouts in, that was causing an enormous amount of stress. And when I began this practice, that stress all started to just go away. It started to kind of bleed off. And I found that when I practiced every day, I would go through the day pretty much stress-free. And that my breathing patterns, and when I was doing the breathing, I would basically, I wasn't counting my actual breath and duration on the inhale and exhale, but it was approximately 5 count. 5 count in, 5 count hold, 5 count out, 5 count hold. It turns out, like, this is how wisdom actually just flows into us through the universe or through the breath. It just turns out that that's like a really powerful breath pattern, because it took the number of breaths that I was breathing per minute down from, what most people average, 14 to 20 breaths per minute, breathing very shallowly. Some of you who were on Brian McKenzie's session probably learned the physiology of breathing. Like, most people breathe very shallow in the upper regions of their chest. They breathe kind of partly through their nose and partly through their mouth. There's just total lack of awareness. And so when we slow the breathing down and breathe through the nostrils, and we begin to use the musculature of the your breathing, your chest, your stomach, your diaphragm, your shoulders, your back, all the muscles of the core, and you are pulling the air deep into your lungs, then you're triggering that parasympathetic response, the rest and digest. And you're breathing in this pattern. I was breathing literally 3 times per minute. Now, what that did is it started to override that unconscious breathing when I was not doing the practice, like in my everyday ramblings and working and school and stuff. It started to slow that down naturally, so that when I wasn't thinking about my breathing, next thing I know, I'm like really calm and I'm breathing like 7 or 8 times per minute. And then it slowly settled into where I was breathing 6 times per minute without thinking about it. And lo and behold, the research literally has just come out in the past few years that 6 breaths per minute is the optimal number of breaths per minute for ideal health, and also has great longevity benefits. And this is something the yogis have been saying for centuries, like, slow down your breathing and it'll extend your life. Of course, we don't have research on that, but I'm willing to bet that that's true. So because I was breathing 3 times per minute in a controlled manner, deliberately for 20 minutes every morning, over time, like I said, my body just rewired itself so that I was breathing 6 times per minute without the holds during my everyday life. That was profound in and of itself for maintaining optimal balance of my body. So I was starting to feel all that stress go away, all the balancing of my body to be in an optimal state of balance. And I felt that as readiness, like I'm centered, I'm grounded, I'm feeling good, my mind is clear, and I'm making better decisions. Now, couple that with the insight that started to come from the meditation practice, and my whole life just, everything that I thought was real was shattered, and a flood of new information came in, and that's what pointed me and brought me to the SEALs. So there I am standing on the Bud's grinder with a bunch of, 18 to 25-year-old, pretty much, studly guys, but none of them had trained their breath or trained their mind like I had. And so as soon as the shitstorm started with the SEAL instructors, whose main job is to see who's going to be on the team with them, and they don't want anyone who's going to be out of control, who's going to freak out, or who's going to be not a good teammate, I couldn't believe it, how many people are quitting. I mean, the course is total mayhem. You've all seen the movies and stuff, and it's just complete chaos. And the instructors seem like Dr. Evil, just not the actual movie doctor guy, but like the most evil characters in the world, and they're just absolutely out to kill you. And I was just standing there, literally immediately clicked back into Zen mode and breathing deeply and super calm and just scanning around and my mind is thinking, this is hilarious, right? These guys are awesome. Like, these are the best characters I've ever seen in my life. Everyone else is freaking out. And I'm thinking, this is awesome. And so I got my boat crew together. I said, guys, this is a piece of cake. We're going to do this, right? And I'm going to teach you basically how to control your mind. And we're going to do this together. Together, we're going to get through this. And so I taught them box breathing, and I taught them some of the other skills, and we ended up dominating. We went through Hell Week. We secured like 4 hours early, which meant we got to go take a warm shower and put dry clothes on while the rest of the class was getting hammered. And it was super cool. And so that experience put me on kind of a lifelong path to really kind of figure out what the heck was going on here, and why did that have such a profound effect on me, and could I teach that to others? So when I got out of active duty, I kind of committed myself to training other SEALs in these principles. And now the Navy SEALs candidates that we train at Unbeatable and at SEAL Fit, 90% of them get through SEAL training, which is compared to an 85% dropout rate for the average person. And now the SEALs and pararescue and Army Rangers and Special Forces are starting to use these skills, such as box breathing and the mental techniques of attention control that I teach, and also imagery. So we call these skills the big 4 skills. And the first one is breath, controlling the breath, using the breath to balance the body, to de-stress, and to gain insight and awareness of what's going on, both outside and inside you. The second skill we call mental control or attitude control. And this is a combination of interdicting negativity and replacing it with positivity in the moment so you can perform, and then long-term eradication of negative patterns and bias, which sounds a lot like emotional development, and it is, but it's a natural outcome of this practice that we're going to go through in a little while. And then the third is using imagery to both maintain a peak performance flow state, but also to create a magnetic pull toward your ideal envisioned future. And for me, my ideal envisioned future was, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. I'm going to graduate. I had, exact image of what that looked like in my mind. And I had practiced it every single day for over a year before I went to SEAL training. And that exact image is what I experienced 9 months later when I graduated as honor man in my class. And so creating the imagery of your future ideal state or your future, destiny, and then practicing it every day as part of your breath practices has an extraordinary effect on manifestation. I hate that term because it's more like new agey term, but how about like becoming the person you are worthy to be to achieve those, those BHAG goals. And then the fourth skill is really discerning the smallest arc that you can take to move the dial forward, the smallest act, the smallest task that you can take that will get you moving and eliminating doubt and gaining confidence and momentum. And so one of the reasons a lot of the people dropped out of BUD/S is that they just had too long of a timeline on their goals, right? A lot of them were like, I'm just going to get to Hell Week. Well, that's too long, right? That's in my class, it was 7 weeks in. And out of 185, I think only like 85 made it to Hell Week. So 100 people dropped. They should have been thinking, I just got to get through this week, or I got to get through this day. And then when we went to Hell Week, a lot of people said, I've got to get from Sunday to Friday. It's too long of a timeline, right? In Hell Week, when the pressure is even condensed more, and you're training around the clock for 24 hours a day for 6 days, no sleep, you have to be thinking, literally 2 hours at a time at first, like from meal to meal. And then you've got to start thinking from evolution to evolution. And then you've got to start thinking, 15-minute time blocks. And then eventually, in the worst moments, you bring it down to one breath at a time or one step at a time. And that's obviously, most of you who are athletes know that that's effective and it works for endurance sports and pretty much anything. but is a powerful skill to learn how to discern what is the right task if it's not given to you, like it was for me in SEAL training. And that comes out of a practice of awareness, right? Creating greater situational awareness, both externally and internally, which is part of this practice, an outcome of this practice. So if it worked for the SEALs and then it worked for me in my career in the SEALs, then I started teaching to the SEALs, and the SEALs candidates were having this profound success. I had a lot of civilians starting to come and say, hey, can you teach us what you're teaching those spec ops guys and ladies? And I said, I think I can. I'm not going to water it down, because we had a lot of hardcore physical training kind of wrapped around all that. But so I kind of stripped all that out and I said, let's see what happens. And that became Unbeatable Mind. And the core practice, the very first thing I teach is this box breathing continuum. And I'll explain what the continuum is, and then there's some caveats. The continuum is a stacked practice, I guess you would say in peak performance terms. It's a stacked practice. There's aspects of it that just need, if you're new to breath work and you're new to meditation, then we just need to work at each piece kind of one step at a time. So let's say there's 5 parts to it. You want to do the first part for several months until you really experience the benefits and you kind of master that. And then you move on to the second part and you master that. And then eventually what happens is you're able to do all of them in one setting and experience the benefits of each. And what happens, this is one thing that I learned through my martial arts and yoga training, and more in yoga, especially the 8 limbs, is that there really is a progression. Like they say that the breath is the bridge between the body, the mind, and the spirit. But if you hope for the breath to take you right to spirit, bypassing the body and the mind and the emotions, stand by, you're going to be disappointed. So you have to go through the body to get to the mind, through the mind to get to the emotions, and through the body, mind, and emotions to get to spirit. It's almost like a Rorschach nesting doll, right? You know, each one of those are encased in layers, right? And the spirit's at the very center of our being, and it's kind of hidden from our view. But when we can kind of refine the physical and the physiology through the breath, and of course, exercise and movement is important, and that is nutrition and sleep and recovery. But the breath is probably the most important of those. Then we begin to refine our mind and open up our mind. And what I mean by that is most of us are kind of stuck in left brain linear thinking, because that's the way Westerners think, and it's the way we're taught. And breath practices will open up. So you get a lot more information transferring between left and right hemisphere. And then the right hemisphere, once you start to really open that up and use imagery and direct perception, then we can begin to connect and communicate with the heart mind and the belly mind, the gut mind. And the heart and the belly have neurological processing and neurotransmitters just like your brain. So it's an important part of your mind. And when you can open up left, right, and down the center using your nervous system and heart and belly, now we're using what we call whole mind. And ultimately, embodiment of this, your whole body becomes your mind. So we have to basically go through the body to get whole mind experience. That's when we also get the full awareness of how our emotions really are connected to our breathing patterns. And we start to experience changes in our emotional states based upon changes in our breathing patterns. And then we have this profound insight that you can overcome emotional trauma through breathing and mindful awareness, and also a little help from maybe some therapists here and there. Certainly helped me. So I'm not advocating therapy and things like EMDR, because it's a really helpful accelerant. But if you didn't have that and you were patient, breath would work. And then, of course, the spiritual stuff that happens is proof that you're starting to then penetrate that layer of intuition and spirit. And that's by having spontaneous insight, growing awakened awareness, which means you're disidentified with the ego identity structures that have driven your behavior for so long. You become much more interested and seated in context versus content of your life. And what I mean by context is the totality of everything around you and the interconnectedness of everything around you, as opposed to the content of who I am and this is what I'm doing and this is my belief, and these are all limiting, structures. Little s versus the big S kind of thing. And that then kind of leads us to deeper kind of spiritual research and insights, which then inform our life for the rest of our lives. It's a game changer. So that's really profound. So let me summarize, and then I'll go through the practice with you. This box breathing continuum is a very simple practice where we just inhale through our nostrils to a very steady state count of 4, if that's what your lung capacity, or 3, but most of us can handle 5. There's no benefit to do 10 count hold, inhale, 10 count hold, 10 count exhale, 10 count hold, unless you want to be a Navy SEAL and train for underwater breath hold work. 5 count is ideal. So inhale through your nostrils, full lung capacity, eyes closed, treating it like a meditation. 5 count in. Then we're going to hold your breath for 5 count. When we hold our breath, we're going to create a lifting sensation. We're not going to be like clamping down. There's no struggle here. We're going to hold our breath for a count of 5. And I'll talk about mental posture in a moment. Then we'll exhale through our nostrils to a count of 5. And that's going to be a very kind of soft exhale, grounding. You're going to have a sinking and grounding and a relaxing feeling. Whereas in the inhale, you're going to be feeling uplifting, energized. Your spine will be coming up. And then the exhale hold, your belly's tucked in. So when you inhale, belly relaxes, fill up the lungs, center out, right? So let me explain that. Brian might have taken you through a 3-part breath exercise, and this is pretty common to teach people, how to fill their breath, how to fill their lungs up. Start with relaxing the belly, pull the breath down into the lower aspect or lower part of your lungs, and then use the diaphragm, center, and then use your chest and shoulders to really bring it to the top. So horizontal breathing and then a little bit of vertical. And that's fine for just learning this. But ideally, what we're going to do is find a center point right in the middle of diaphragm. And then we want to fill up, out, and around all directions, omnidirectionally. That's the image you want. So your inhale is going to be relaxed belly, this omnidirectional inhale. And your exhale is going to be tighten the belly in this omnidirectional exhale, like you're deflating a balloon and your belly's tucked in. And then the exhale hold is also for 5 count. And each count roughly a second. And so that exhale hold kind of metaphorically and even spiritually is scary for people because it represents your consciousness having been expelled, and it represents death. And so it can inhibit some anxiety. And if that doesn't work for you, then take a little sip of air or shorten it up to 2 or 3 count. So your box can be a little lopsided, and that's fine. Later on in your practice, that'll go away. And what you'll find is that exhale breath hold will be the moments in your life when you have the most stillness in your mind, right? We call that sacred silence, the most stillness in your mind. And it only takes a few moments of that kind of stillness to reach that awakened state that the spiritual traditions, hold so in such regard, because your active left linear brain is completely paused and it's not fighting you for once in your life. So the exhale hold is profound because it's de-energized. Consciousness is still with you, but you've exhaled the universal and the life force and the spent, stale oxygen out of your lungs. And now it's just you with what's left, facing your own reality. It's really profound. So those are the 4 parts. The inhale, center out, fill up. You want to create the inhale so that it fills up the 5 count. It's not like inhale 2, and then you just hold, you're not inhaling. It's inhale, 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 and my lungs are full at 5. Same thing with the exhale. The inhale, let me just go through this again. The inhale is energizing. You're going to feel lifting. Your spine will literally rise. And you're going to have some mental movement, right? That mental movement is going to be, it's going to be positive. It's going to be energy coming in. It's consciousness. It's like, yes, I've got another opportunity to do this. The exhale, the inhale hold will be the state of that, all that life force and energy kind of diffusing through your body. There's even some imagery we use to help this out. And so this is, I'm alive, yay, I've got this. So there's mental energy and there's emotional states attached to this. And it's nice to, get to where you start to notice these subtle things. And then the exhale is like, oh, now I'm settling down, right? I'm really going back into the cocoon and I'm calming. Your spinal rate, will kind of sink a little bit. You can have the feeling or sensation of grounding and like settling into the earth. And I've already described that exhale hold. So that's the practice. Now, I keep using that term practice. This is not something that we do just once in a while or to get into a peak state. This is a practice that we do every day. And the recommended time is 20 minutes. It can be done longer, but I found the minimum 20 minutes to get the full benefit. But the cool thing is because it's a stacked practice, it's not like you have to do this and then another meditation practice or, something else. It is pretty much a complete practice. It's best to do this after some movement because generally speaking, the progression is we move the body to bleed off all the kind of aggro energy and kinks out, the things that are going to distract us. Then we do the breath work. And then we work in complete stillness without any breath holds, without any attempt to control the breath. So we go from gross to subtle, if that makes sense, from the hard movement to the breath is movement to just pure stillness. And that's a really nice progression. And that's actually something that is also taught through the yoga traditions with certain teachers who know what they're talking about. So the first step of the process that we want to really pay attention to is simply arousal, control, de-stressing, and balancing. And so when I have new students, especially if they're not really physically fit, if they maybe have some weight issues or they're new to this type of work, say, we're just going to box breathe and look solely for that de-stressing, balancing, and arousal control benefit. And in just a matter of weeks, there's some profound shifts that already happen. And then they're naturally led on to the next stage. But we don't want to get too overcomplicated. So the first stage is let's just breathe. Don't worry about what's happening with your mind. Don't try to control your mind. Don't try to visualize the box. Don't try to activate any mindful awareness or look for any special insights. You're just doing it to de-stress your body and to rewire your automatic nervous system so that you slow that breathing down for the rest of your life down to that 6 counts per minute through the nose, unless you're talking or working out. The second phase, once you master that, is attention control, focusing, and concentration. So this is kind of what Nakamura, my Zen master, was trying to get me to do. Say, okay, now what we're going to do is, now that our body is calm and it's not distracting us, and when you calm the body down, because your brain is part of your body, it also slows down the frequency of the content that arises. So you're not dealing with the monkey mind as much as like a pinball bouncing around. Now it's just kind of long waves of stories that arise, and you just have to deal with that. So attention control is my focus, my attention is now on this box pattern. And I can use a count, or I can use the imagery that I described earlier of visualizing the box. And I got to keep my attention on that. So I'm practicing this is my focus of attention. We call that attention control. B, I'm going to focus on that with radical intensity, and I can change the intensity. So sometimes I need to back off in intensity. It's kind of like, backing off on the gas pedal of your car, or sometimes I need to increase the intensity. And it really depends upon my energy, time of day, and how things are working in my practice. If I'm really, really distracted, I need to put some gas pedal to the metal, increase my intensity on that focusing object. And then the third is concentration power. The two of these together develop concentration power, which is literally like if you were to look at your brain, like a muscle, and you were going to go into the gym and you were going to work that brain out using like Olympic lifts, you're going to develop some strength and strength power and some of the different things. And so this mental training develops concentration power, which is the ability to concentrate on something deeply for long periods of time without wavering, without distraction. And it's profound when it comes to creative work, the benefits for creative work or for any kind of deep work. So this is part 2. The way it works, and this is very simple and it's nothing new to you, but I want to go through it, is you're going to spend the first few minutes just getting the arousal control benefits without worrying about the concentration. When you're feeling grounded, then you begin to visualize or count the box, and you intentionally shift your attention to just that. So I'm inhaling and I see the box in my mind's eye, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or I just see it. I'm holding my breath, and then I'm exhaling. I'm seeing that box kind of down the other side, and I hold my, then I hold my breath at the bottom. And of course, because your mind is the way it is, some thought is going to arise. It could be triggered from an external, trigger, or an internal trigger, like an emotion. And you're going to either notice it or not notice it. Meaning you're going to be thinking and you'll be shifting from the box, and now you'll be thinking, and you won't notice that you're thinking, but you'll just be thinking. Or you'll have split attention. This is what happened with me with Zen. Split attention. Part of my mind is watching the box. Part of my mind is thinking. You've all experienced that. It's like your brain trying to multitask, and it's doing neither one very well because your concentration power is now split. And that's okay. Like, these are things not to be worried about, not to beat yourself up about. It's just the way the brain is working. Now, that's why we need to train the brain, train the mind. So the skill now is to, when you notice that you've shifted from that box pattern, which was your sole object of concentration, that was your only task, and now you're thinking about something, then you say, okay, that's interesting, I'm thinking. And now I'm just going to interdict that thought and redirect it back to the box pattern. So I'm going to actively say, no, I'm not going to think that I'm coming back to the box. This is very different than mindfulness, where you're just kind of allowing what comes up to come up and passively watching it. This is a direct, active interdiction. You're controlling your mind to come back to the box pattern. Remember, we're trying to use our concentration power and develop concentration. Let me back up a little bit and just do a little kind of call out box here. The two dominant forms of meditation that have come to the West are concentration, which is a very much of a left brain thing, and mindfulness. John Kabat-Zinn kind of popularized mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness training, which is more of a right brain watching your thinking, metacognitive practice. No attempt to control. Concentration, mindfulness. Each one is valid if done effectively. But when done together, it's profoundly powerful. Because one of the reasons mindfulness doesn't work is because people haven't learned to concentrate their mind and to be able to limit the number of content. And so there's just too much content and they can't make sense of it. They can't work with the content. And so there's health benefits to the mindfulness. People feel calmer, and there's some stress management benefits, but it doesn't work for them for developing emotional power and greater awareness and greater discernment. So when we can develop greater concentration and be able to shift our attention at will and be able to recognize when our attention is being occupied by something that's not useful or is actually dangerous, such as negative stories, negative news, negative people, distractions, then we become way more capable of directing our mind toward things that we want to focus on or that are healthy and helpful. And then that allows our mindfulness practice to be very discerning when something much subtler shows up, like an emotional shadow or a bias that isn't helpful or useful. And this is where the realm of emotional development comes into play through this practice. So that second piece is really attention. My intention is to keep my attention on the box pattern. My intention is to interdict and redirect my mind back to the box pattern when I recognize that I've shifted focus or split my focus, and then to hold my attention for longer and longer periods of time on that box pattern, and to shorten the duration of time that it takes me to notice that my mind has either split attention or wandered. Does that make sense? So there's a lot going on there, but it is actually fairly simple. It's just not easy to do. Right? It takes some practice. But our minds, like a wild stallion, at first they're like all over the place, and we're trying to lasso them and bring them in. And then pretty soon, you have that kind of meetup And your mind just says, okay, I guess this is the new norm. And then it starts to behave a little bit. So it doesn't take that long, 3 or 4 months of practice. So I've already started to describe that third phase. So once we get fairly competent at attention control, focusing, and concentration, then we release the box imagery. We release the focus of attention on the box and we move into mindful awareness. And there's 2 parts of mindful awareness. First is metacognition, which is being aware of your thinking from the field of thinking. This is what's taught in most mindfulness classes. So you kind of like shift perspective to where you're going to look at your thinking. And then the second phase is when you begin to experience the awakening state, which is the context, not the content, which is, formless versus the form. Then we do the mindful awareness from the perspective of what we call the witness, which is beyond your rational mind, right? There's no kind of self there anymore. But there is, because there's a local version of this witness that is still localized in you. And it's hard to really describe this, of course, but it's more of an experience that you have to have. Many of you have had that experience, I'm sure. It's like those peak states where you just go beyond any sense of self-identity and you have this rapture moment. And then we want to go back there. Well, this mindful awareness practice gets us there through a process by training our mind and looking inward. The Taoists call that turning the light around. Instead of using our eyes to look outward, we turn the light of our eyes around and we look inward, and we're looking for that awareness. And then when we find awareness, we merge with it, and then the awareness becomes our looker, our seer, instead of our ego. So that all happens through this third stage, mindful awareness. And when we can get there, that's when the healing begins. The emotional healings, traumatic healings, the things that we all deal with that hold us back, which I think is one of the most profound benefits of meditation and breath work, is really to eradicate trauma, most of it from childhood, and to clear up negativity. One of my mentors, Ken Wilber, says we have to wake up. That's waking up is waking up to that awakened state, that you're not your stories and thoughts and emotions, you're something much more. And then we grow up, and this means we grow out of our egoic structures into more of a world-centric, cosmocentric, we're all in this together perspective. And then we become very compassionate and very connecting. And we ascend to a state of like universal love. That's growing up. But that's not enough, because we have seen awakened individuals and individuals who have ascended to universal love still have emotional trauma and emotional patterns that really torpedo their efforts to communicate effectively and tend to show up in unhealthy ways. So we also have to clean up our emotional shadow, our emotional lives. And that's something that we can do with this practice. The fourth stage is letting it all go. Letting go of trying to control the breath, letting go of trying to find the witness and watching your thoughts, letting go of any imagery or any intention to do anything at all. And so what you're looking for is your mind to drop into that state that you've already experienced on the exhale holds, the sacred silence. And the Taoists who say this is when you drop into the Tao, or you drop into the void. And it's your mind, it's your mental structures just finally just quieting down. And you experience this vast spaciousness. It doesn't look like space, but that's the best way to describe it. And the feeling is one of just, it's going to be different every time, but the feeling is one of just being completely at home and at peace. And when you're in this space, you tend to bring something back with you every time you go there. And so we call that insight or intuition. But you can have insight and intuition without being in this state, but this is like a supercharged way to really get information and to be able to work with it. So it's like every time you drop into one of those states, it's like you leave a little trail marker and it's easier to get back there. But if you strive, you won't find it. Anytime you strive, anytime you try, anytime you effort, you move further away from it, right? So it's like one of those neurofeedback games where your goal is to not to try to fly the airplane through the hoop. But the more you try to not try, you're trying. So it's a real conundrum. So the practice is just to let go and surrender to surrender everything, any sense of identity, any sense of neediness, any desire, anything that comes up, don't latch on, just surrender. And if you are a religious person, you can say surrender it to God, and that works just fine. So those are the 4 aspects of this box breathing practice. And it's why it can be so profound, because you can do it all in one practice. And you might have practices where, you drop in for long periods of time. You might have practices where it just doesn't happen, or long periods of time where it doesn't happen. That's okay. You might have times where you're focusing really well and your concentration is spot on, and other times where, you can't focus with beans, and that's okay. Because you're always getting benefits of the practice. You're getting the arousal control and the stress management benefits. You're getting the refinement of your mind, constantly working toward, more and more states of capacity to concentrate and hold that attention. And you're moving closer and closer to being able to connect with a witness beyond the metacognition of the mindful awareness. And you're having experiences of the insight when you drop in. So if you're all open to it, we'll walk through a 20-minute practice. Do we have that time, Ben? Yeah, okay. And I'm sorry I went a little long because it's almost 3. This stuff is really interesting to me, so sorry about that if I'm holding you too long. But stick around. So we're going to do this 20-minute practice, and the reason I'm going to walk you through this and dialogue while I'm doing it, so you kind of get a sense for how you would mentally do this practice on your own. Okay, where's my phone? I need a timer. Now, I'm going to use a sound. So sound can also be one of our objects for concentration, but I'll also cue you on, I hope the sound doesn't sound too corny coming through the speaker, but it should be okay. It'll help me stay on task. This is a 20-minute practice, 5 by 5 by 5 by 5 box breathing, as I've described. The first 5 minutes, we're just going to breathe for arousal control and feel the benefits. Second 5, we're going to focus on the box pattern and visualize it and work on our concentration skills. And the third 5 minutes, we're going to do mindful awareness. And then the fourth 5 minutes, I'm going to stop the sound. We're going to stop the box pattern, and we're just going to sit in complete silence. And that's when I'm going to cue you to surrender. Okay? Ready? So, take up your seated meditative posture, straight spine, relaxed shoulders, relaxed face. Take a few deep breaths in and set your intention. That this is a practice for exploring this box breathing practice that Divine is talking about. And let's just not have any expectations, but let's learn the process so that we can benefit from it. Now we're going to inhale, and we're going to inhale together. Now we're going to exhale together. And prepare to begin. And begin. Inhale. Hold your breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold your breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm not going to count here. Follow the sound. Inhale. Feel that energy rising, that lifting. Hold your breath with that lifting, life-filling sensation. Feel the energy, feel the life force. Exhale. Feel your spine lowering, your shoulders relaxing, grounding, centering. Hold. Look for that sacred silence. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Just working on the physiological here, looking for that arousal control. Hold. De-stress the body, mind, find balance. Inhale. Hold. Don't worry about concentration. Exhale. And hold. Stillness. Clear mind. Inhale. You might notice as we get into minute 2, 3, 4 that your mind is calming down. That's hold. That's good. Exhale. The warrior, the athlete, the leader needs to have a calm, clear, poised mind. Hold. Ready for anything. Good. Inhale. Looking for the yin and the yang to ride that center line between calmness and activity. Hold. Like the Zen monk who could spring into action, take out his enemy. Exhale. Hold. Body, mind is calming down, bleeding off stress. In. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Nice. Inhale. Hold. Energized, feeling good. Exhale. Calming, relaxing, de-stressing, grounding. Hold. Just this. Inhale. Full lung capacity. Hold. If you know the bundas, you can lock on the inhale, hold. Exhale. And hold. Peace. Inhale. Bring the energy back in, life force, consciousness. Hold. Exhale. Calm. One more minute with just this arousal control practice. Inhale. That's 3 rounds. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale, we got this. Breathe in, life force, consciousness. Hold. Energy, press it throughout your body, every cell, rejuvenating. Exhale, calm, relax, expelling any toxins. Belly tucked in, hold, calm. One more. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Good. We're going to shift fire now and practice our concentration and attention control. So as you inhale now, visualize a box in your head. One side of the box being drawn in. Hold your breath. See the top of the box now being drawn. Any color, any size you want. Exhale. Now the other side of the box being drawn in. I like to think of this as down. And hold. Fill in the bottom. We're going to keep our attention on this box pattern. If you prefer to count, that's fine. Inhale. Draw the box. This is also going to activate and help you refine your imagery. Hold. Exhale. Draw the side of the box down toward the bottom and hold. Draw the bottom of the box in your mind's eye. Of course, when you notice your mind has wandered, inhale. You interdict it and bring it back to that box pattern. Hold. We're looking for a minimum of 50% of our time to hold our concentration on the pattern, on the object. Exhale. That means you're making serious progress. Eventually, you'll get it up to 70 or 80. Hold. Of course, the imagery is really helpful with this. Inhale. Focus on that box. Hold. Paint the top. Exhale. Paint the side. Hold. Those of you who have a mantra practice, this also works, where you say your mantra on the inhale, the hold, the exhale, and the hold. Inhale. Hold. Where's your attention now? Has it wandered? Bring it back. Exhale. Keep it on the box. Focus. Concentrate. Hold. You need to develop the concentration power of a Navy SEAL on a mission. Inhale. Just this. Just concentrate on this side of the box. That's all you got to do. Hold. Your mind will comply if you train it. Exhale down the side of the box. No need to think about anything else. Don't split your attention. Hold. Bottom. Nice work. Inhale. Hold. Concentrate. Stay on it. Don't waver. Exhale. You got to treat this like a Zen warrior. So Nakamura used to say, concentrate. Hold. Draw the bottom of that box. Inhale. Just this. Concentrate on that side of the box. Hold your breath. Draw that image across the top. Keep your mind fixed on it like a laser beam. Exhale. Hold. Easy day. Here we go. Inhale. Concentrate. Easy day. Piece of cake. We got this. Hold. Exhale. No need to think about anything. Give yourself a break. Just concentrate on this one thing and hold. Nice. Inhale. A few more rounds of this. Hold. Concentrate deeply on this pattern, on the box. Exhale down that right side. Feel that grounding. Focus on the box. Hold. And the bottom. 2 more rounds. Inhale. Hold. Concentrate. Got this. It's important work. Exhale. This helps you tune out all the garbage in your life. Just focus on the mission. Hold. Focus on the positive. Focus on the good people in your life. Inhale. End distraction and distractibility. Hold. This is it. You got 3 more sides. Just hold it 100%. Your attention is 100%. Push the gas pedal down. Exhale. And hold. This should feel like effort, like your brain is sweating. Now release the effort. Don't have to draw the brain or the box. Don't even think about the box, but you're going to still inhale to the pattern. Hold. Exhale. Now, by releasing the concentration, just let your mind relax. Like imagine your mind was gripping like a fist before. Hold your breath. Now release your hand, release the fist, and open up your mind. Inhale. And with that foot completely off the gas, as we breathe through this pattern, we're going to allow content to come back into our mind. Don't force it out. Don't fight against it. Exhale. And just what I want you to do, though, is to watch that content from afar. So I like set up a little stool in my mind where I'm sitting in the back of my mind watching content in the front. Inhale. This is like partitioning your mind like a hard drive into metacognitive capacity. Hold. It's not concentration. You're just observing what's coming up beyond this box breathing pattern. This is your breath pattern. It's just happening. It's just running in the background. Now, what's coming up? Anything? And what we do over time is we notice the patterns. Hold. We're looking for patterns, recurring patterns. Exhale. These are the subconscious patterns, our priming, our biases, our frames. Hold. And we're looking for the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want to enhance the good and get rid of the bad and the ugly. Inhale. Hold. If you have experience with witnessing, then you're going to turn the light inward toward the witness. Exhale. Otherwise, don't worry about that. Just watch for thoughts and emotions. Hold. Allow whatever arises to arise. You're not going to judge it. Inhale. You're not going to interdict it or redirect it or try to suppress it. You're developing situational awareness. Hold. Awareness of the totality of your environment, internal and external. Very important skill. Exhale. Beyond even just the emotional development I was talking about. Just being aware of more things. Hold your breath. Help keep you away from danger and to go toward opportunities. Inhale. Hold. This is non-efforting. And even with the breath, you want to feel like you're being breathed a little bit now. Exhale, which will prepare you for the final phase. Less effort, softer. Hold. Just sit in the back of your mind, observe whatever's going on in your frontal lobe, neocortex. Hold. Exhale. Hold. This should feel soft, relaxing. Inhale. So you're moving toward that surrender that I was talking about. But you're still efforting a little bit with the breath, a little bit with the instructions. You got distractions with me talking. It's okay. Exhale. Whatever is happening is just happening. Just pay attention to it. Notice it. You can begin to name your patterns. Inhale, what the yogis would call your samskaras, like sandbars in a riverbank. Hold. They redirect or direct the quality of your thinking, often in negative ways. Exhale. You find negative patterns built upon guilt or self-worth issues or hold or perfectionism or righteousness or judgment. These are the things we want to eradicate. Let them go. Inhale. Soft. Don't attempt to control your mind. Hold. Exhale. We're going to do one more round of the mindful awareness component. We're already 15 minutes into our practice. Amazing, huh? Feels like about 2. Inhale. what's going on right now. Just pay attention. Notice everything. Hold. Exhale. Good. And hold. Good. Now release the holds and just shift it to a 5-count inhale, 5-count exhale, and release the efforting. So I want you to feel like the universe is breathing you, and make it absolutely the most silent breath you've ever made in your life. No sound, no constriction, no need to impress anyone with how loud you breathe. Make it absolutely silent. Imagine that the universe, the context, the formlessness around you is pushing the air in and pulling it out. And now release any effort to think, release any effort to watch. Just surrender. Surrender to the breath coming in, circling around, and then coming out. And this breath forms kind of an oval shape. But you're not the breather, you're being breathed. Surrender, let go deeper and deeper, not into fatigue or sleep, but into this spacious awareness. That which is beyond thinking, beyond emotion, even beyond space and time and form. What some would call your eternal nature. Just surrender to that, drop into that. Let go. Don't look for any insight or intuition, just have an attitude of receptivity, openness, surrender, acceptance, and being held in a loving way and being breathed by the universe as the interconnected being, expression of universal love. Nothing to do, nothing to think, nothing to feel. Whatever comes up just goes right through you. Those are like clouds passing in the sky, but you are the sky. Or they're like waves in the ocean. Any thought or emotion that comes up is like a wave in the ocean. You are the ocean. You are spacious awareness that extends in all directions. All direction in this physical realm, all directions in time and space. Supersedes time and space. This eternal now moment is ultimately all you have, and so you're surrendering to this now moment and let the embrace of that conscious awareness that exists all around us be experienced internally. And let it help heal from the inside out. That's what insight is all about, and intuition is to help us heal, move toward health, move toward awakening and enlightenment, move away from harmful attitudes, beliefs, addictions, habits. Moving you toward your purpose as an evolved human being in service. found through surrender, not efforting. Efforting comes later after you have clarity of intent and action. Preceding that is the non-efforting, the surrendering, the letting go, tapping into the source, what have you. Just another minute or so. Now, again, no need to effort for that minute, but just let another layer go. See if you can just let another piece, another something that you're hanging on to, another expectation, any belief, just let it go. Okay, I know we could all stay here forever. We dropped into a deep state, so let's bring ourselves back out. So begin to take active control of your breathing, feel the breath again, make some noise with it. Come back into your space. Open your eyes. Hoo-yah. Thanks so much, everybody. I hope that was interesting and helpful, and maybe you gain an insight or two. And Ben, I appreciate you very much for allowing me to share that.
Thank you so much, Mark. That was phenomenal. We really appreciate you. Yeah, taking time, having you come here and just walk us through this. And I just want to thank everyone for staying with us this whole time. These breath practices are so amazing to have the knowledge and awareness of this, but really the power comes from the practice and putting these things into your life. So thank you guys for staying to the end and taking the time for yourselves to experience this.